Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the EFL Fantasy Podcast. My name is Angus,
And my name is Dan.
and we're here to talk a little bit about Game Week 38. So I guess we'll dive sort of straight into the reviews, and we'll look at some of the sort of teams we want to talk about from this game week. Get into your questions and look ahead a little bit to Game Week 39. So Dan, how did Game Week 38 go for you?
Yeah, probably slightly just above average, 73 minus 4. Captain Solanke, like most people did. Vice captain Mitrovic. Only real returns was 13 from Spence, 13 from Bree, and 9 from Patson. So I'm now 150th, which is a green arrow of about 8 places. My transfers this week were McNair and Carvalho out for Bree and Cadra, so I think it sort of broke even, maybe slightly ahead. So yeah, quite happy with this game week.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. I ended up on 67, which was a small red arrow for me. I captained Solanke as well, which like you say, everyone did. I had Spence and Brennan Johnson, who combined for 24 points. I had Paddy McNair as vice captain, which became 9 from his 6 pointer, but obviously also felt like a bit of a blow because he had the penalty saved. And as I said to a couple of people, part of the reason I had vice captained him was with Sporar being a doubt. If they got a penalty, he would take it,
Yeah.
and it nearly paid off big time.
The funny thing about it was the fact that it trickled along the goal line as well.
And like I hadn't even been watching the Middlesbrough game until about 30 seconds before that. I turned on and saw the penalty incident. So I thought, oh, here we go. And then he missed it. But, it was still a better vice captaincy than a lot of people. That's sort of the consolation I take. The people who went for like Mitrovic. I saw a few even on someone like Harry Wilson. Benched Bassi, which was the other sort of frustration for me. Naismith didn't play, so Carvalho's sort of 2-pointer came in my bench. But, it was a lot of sort of twos and threes throughout the team. So 67 points, so red arrow 4 places down to 71st. So could have been better, but not the end of the world. Looking forward to game week 39 now. But we're going to talk about some of the sort of key teams almost, or the most interesting or significant teams from game week 38. And speaking of Amin Bassi, I'm going to kick off with Barnsley. Now, obviously, Barnsley have been looking better recently. And they got this big win against, big in terms of the significance rather than the scoreline, against Bristol City, which has now moved them to within 2 points of safety, which a matter of weeks ago, would have been insane to think about Barnsley being safe. But what do you think about Barnsley at the moment?
To be honest, I've quite liked them ever since they played Luton and only just lost. It's just the front three of Bassi, Quainer, and Morris. I know we go on about it quite often, but they're just a bit more dynamic, and Morris is able to hold the ball up more. Um, that brings the other two into play, although scored both of their goals from set pieces this week. So, yeah, well, I think we were discussing about Bassi, and I was saying that I would try and I would have tried to have got Bassi into the side, but yeah, there was quite a lot of benching headaches for all of us. Like I had Baker last on my bench as well, so it felt like a lot of people had a lot of decent players that were bench. Like I saw a few people bench Spence and things like that. So yeah, it's quite annoying. But I just thought if you're playing against Bristol City, you've got to try and get an attacking
Yeah,
player to play. Really, no, I like Barnsley. Can they stay up? I think they can. Obviously, they got a tricky game this week with Sheffield United, but they've not been on great form, Sheffield United. So you never know. Any point when you're down at the bottom is a good point. So yeah, I'm not sure I'd be looking to bring any in, but Bassey's definitely a decent option with the price he is. Maybe not this week though.
Yeah, it's not sort of an ideal purchase this week, but yeah, I think he's obviously made a big difference, and I think they're sort of pushing in the right direction. And obviously, they've got the massive game in 40 against a Reading, which could have a huge say in the relegation battle. But I just thought it was worth sort of bringing them up because this was a big win, as you said. It was also good to see that they can still do that sort of thing. That's important in terms of getting those set piece goals. Having that weapon to it makes a big difference. And it, again, from a Gaffr point of view, it adds to the appeal of someone like Bassey. If guys like Hellick are going to be getting on the end of those. But we'll move on. The next one that I've got is Middlesbrough. Obviously they'd struggled a little bit for results recently. So I think the most important thing for them was just to get another win on the board, particularly as they were losing out points wise to some of the teams around them. Obviously, one of the stories will be from a Gaffr point of view, will be the missed penalty by McNair. Thankfully, in Gaffr this year, you don't get minus points for missed penalties. That would have been the real sort of icing on the cake in terms of the vice captaincy not quite panning out as well as it could have been. Aaron Connolly got a goal, and Balogun scored a really good goal. It was a really good finish. And he seems to be sort of really finding his feet now. It took a little adjustment period, but he seems to be playing quite well at the moment. It's a fairly settled team as well with Middlesbrough, particularly if you're looking for assets. I know they don't play in 39, but 9 or 10 of the team, you can basically say, sort of injuries permitting, who's going to be in the team. But yeah, I think they needed this to sort of just keep pace in the playoff race. If they dropped sort of results in another couple of games, they dropped points in another couple of games, they were suddenly going to be looking sort of upwards at more teams. But yeah, I think it's a decent team. I don't know what your thoughts are on Borough and this result and more generally.
Yeah, I think it's one of those teams where you think everyone seems to think that they're going to get into the playoffs. And what's really been holding them back was their away form had been pretty poor. It is against a Birmingham side who haven't been great recently. So whether you'll be able to take too much from this, especially away from home, I'm not too sure. But as you mentioned, quite a settled side. It's probably only maybe left wing back with Taylor. Bowler's now back, so you'd think maybe after the international break, he'd probably get in the team. And it's just the strikers, they seem to rotate that the four, Connolly, Balogun, Sporer, and what more. But yeah, apart from that, I got rid of McNair, so I was quite happy that he missed the penalty. It's just one of those, quite a lot of defenders at the minute who are quite good picks for Gaffr, obviously, after the blank. So yeah, I like Borough. We'll have to wait and see if they get in the playoffs, but they're going to be fighting to the end, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we're sort of looking at 38 now and 39, but then obviously, yes, they do have Fulham as part of their game week 40 double, but they also have Peterborough as part of their game week 40 double. So it's probably worth looking at them. Although obviously they won't be playing this weekend, but like you say, with the away form, I think it was a big result for them to just get one on the board. even if Birmingham have been struggling a bit recently. And I'm sure it'll feel nice for them getting the clean sheet. And I think Birmingham didn't even have a shot on target in the game. So yeah, solid performance from them all round. The next one I've got is West Brom. A result that I don't think any of us saw coming, particularly with the way West Brom have been conceding goals, unless we were sort of like,
I think someone predicted it last week, didn't they?
That's true. But I certainly didn't see the West Brom clean sheet coming. I didn't think that
No.
it was as obvious to pile in sort of, I'd said that I thought it was viable to go against Mitrovic in terms of the armbands this week. I didn't think it was necessarily going to be a goal fest, but I didn't really see the clean sheet coming. But I guess the big question is, do you think this is representative of something sort of meaningfully different, or do you think this is essentially just a one-off?
I'm not sure. Like most of the team is pretty similar, but they have sort of gone to a 3-5-2, so they can build up, play more. Probably the main thing is they've put the youngster Gardner Hickman in alongside Mount and Livermore, so there's probably a bit more legs in there to get around the pitch. Because you don't really want Livermore to do that much running at his age. And the front two of Robinson and Grant, we've seen all season that they've had quite a good link-up play. Even if they were like playing on opposite wings, they were setting each other up. And with them closer together, I think they could start doing better, but they might have left it a bit late for the playoffs. But I think it's a solid base, and we've seen all seasons they were creating quite a lot of chances and just missing them. But I don't know. I think Bruce is definitely starting to find his team he likes now. Now he's got rid of Adam Reach.
It's after dropping Adam Reach, where Adam Reach was undroppable. He's been dropped, and all of a sudden it's starting to come together. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I saw a couple of people who follow Fulham saying that they'd probably been cruising through a few games recently, and it sort of came back to bite them in this one. I did think West Brom were good, but I'm a bit wary of sort of, West Brom have also been poor recently, so it's sort of, is this the signifier of something, or is this just a number of a number of circumstances coming together in one game, which I think we'll sort of get a better idea of in the next sort of couple of games or so. I'm not sure about sort of piling into their assets in Gaffr. It's a difficult one. I mean, I know people will immediately look at the likes of Furlong and Townsend, who obviously had been quite heavily sold. Carl and Grant. I'm sure some people are ready to get hurt again. Some people aren't. I'm sure people feel even more strongly about that in terms of Callum Robinson. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting, and particularly because it was quite a good performance from them about how much it actually meant going forward, which I guess we can't say for certain, but I do think there probably have been some positive signs, like you say, since changing to this 3-5-2. So maybe it's the sign of something.
And in game week 39, they got Bristol City, where you'd like to think that maybe their attacking options could do quite well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was worth bringing West Brom up. I know quite a few people still have Townsend floating around on their bench, and he's not exactly the worst person to have this game week, I don't think.
No, definitely not. The next team that I've got listed here is Millwall, who obviously got a win. And I think, they got a win against a good Huddersfield team, Benik Afobe with both goals. And I just feel like we haven't like we haven't done a lot of talking about Millwall. They've played them like we've talked about, them in passing, and we've talked about guys like Murray Wallace and Jed Wallace, and part of this was so just wanted to put into perspective. They're 2 points off the playoffs now. Yes, they've had we've talked about in passing about them having a good run, but yeah, they're 2 points off the playoffs now. And just another mention, I think, as well for Benik Afobe. Like, he obviously had the injury interruption recently, but either side of that, he's actually been playing really well. He's got a few goals, which is something this Millwall side tends to lack. They've been quite defensively solid. It's just whether they can get the goals. I think someone like him is
five clean sheets in a row for Millwall now.
And so someone like him is, could be the real difference maker. Because, like you say, that those clean sheets, they are there for them. The defensive performances, they are there. It's just whether they can get the goals to win enough games, because they are very much in this race. As they showed, like I say, they beat a very good Huddersfield team in this game. I know you bought McNamara.
I haven't played him yet, though. He's doing very well collecting points on my bench, but he'll be in my team this week, so we all know what's going to happen there. But I just thought he brilliant price. Whether he's great attacking, he's probably not, but he's probably playing for one of the best defenses in the league. If they do keep it quite tight, I think he sometimes does get the odd bonus point. So, I was quite happy to have him in the side. I know you love Murray Wallace.
What a guy.
Who, as you said when we were talking about it today, is somehow seventh. Was it seventh place?
Yeah, seventh highest scoring defender in the game. Scott Malone is sixth as well. We've talked about Scott Malone like multiple times in the past as well. It really has all come together, particularly when you factor in that he's missed a number of games along the way and he's up there for points. Looking at them, I think they are viable for people as well. Their run isn't terrible.
Their run is really good.
Yeah.
Stoke, Luton, Swansea, Barnsley, Preston, Hull.
Yeah, Birmingham. I mean, you can Birmingham, Peterborough, and then they play Bournemouth on the final day. You can basically hold any Millwall assets all the way through.
And that's why I got McNamara, just quite cheap, not too bothered about benching. And I keep benching his points, but he's coming in handy this week when I basically have 11 players. So, I think good options. Obviously, Jed Wallace is there. I think just in general, I think they've improved since they've started playing Billy Mitchell and McNamara. Maybe just a bit of youngsters in there who have grown up in the academy. Fans can relate to them. So, Millwall, like Huddersfield, probably going a bit under the radar, really.
Yeah, definitely. Next team to talk about, I've got Luton. So obviously you can probably speak best to Luton this week.
Yeah.
Another a big result this week.
Massive result. The first thing we probably should mention is I'm not convinced Luton have any centre backs. So we went into the lineup for the Preston game. We only had Burke, who was our out and out centre back. We were playing young Kioso at right centre back, who's normally a right back, and Potts, who's just a solid player, who's normally back at left side is centre back. And about 15 minutes into the game, Burke's done his hamstring, so he's definitely going to be out. So that's no Bradley, no Naismith, probably no Burke, no Lockyer, no Osho, so they're all out. I am wondering if Naismith can play this weekend. I don't think I mentioned it on the pod, but he was not 100% against QPR, so I'm wondering if he had an injection to play the QPR game. Obviously, you can't have too many injections in a short space of time. Whether he'll get risked for Hull, so it's not ideal because I've got Naismith and he's currently in my 11 to play, so I've got to make a decision whether to get rid of Naismith.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not ideal because when he plays, he's such good value at 5 million. So I'm not sure if I really want to get rid of him because he could be back. We've got international break in 2 weeks. He might be back after that. You just don't know. So, but the performance was really good. Just having Berry and Clark back centre mid, Berry's just a box to box midfielder, just good late runs. I think he's got 6 goals in 9 games or something stupid like that. It's just keeping him fit. And Clark's just really good on the ball. Not terrible picks for a punt, but they could get rotated. Cornick and Adebayo up front. Jones decided to keep Adebayo on, and he rolled his ankle in injury time. So he's probably a doubt. My guess he'll probably play, but why, when you're 4-0 up, you don't take off your best player when he's been struggling for injuries, knocks and things like that. But yeah, it was probably our best performance since Bournemouth. We've been being quite pragmatic recently, but this was similar performances to Coventry and similar earlier on in the season, which is good. Yeah, so it was mainly just about the injury crisis, to be honest. And what I would say is when Burke went off, Bree went to right-sided centre back. Obviously, he's still on every set piece, so you could still get return.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Naismith, I think the thing for me, my guess was, I mean, there may well have been an injection. My guess was coming back from the injury, it's probably looking at it in sort of 3-game week as well. He was always likely to miss the middle one if there was any sort of issue. So,
yeah,
not sure whether he'll be back for the weekend. I would say hopefully we get some clarity, but Nathan Jones might be the manager in the league you get the least clarity from. So, just make your decisions this week, acknowledging that he might well be out, depending on what the state of that is. But yeah, I just thought it's a very sort of good performance, putting away a team, who've had some decent results, and sort of just the manner of the performance, putting them away. Obviously, my one move this week was buying Diaby. Thankfully, he was third on my bench.
Angus, he's not good. Do you know what, mate? But Preston fans were giving him rave reviews, but I'm not joking. His second touch is a tackle. So
yeah. I mean, worst comes to worst for me, he sits there as sort of a bench player, and I've saved about 1.5 mil by buying him. So that's not the worst thing in the world if I can use that to get something better elsewhere, but not ideal. Thankfully, he was wedged firmly to my bench.
With his own goal was brilliant as well.
Yeah.
Everson punched it at his head and it went in.
Yeah, thankfully I didn't. But at one point we were talking in our chat, I was talking about buying Everson to play him this week. Thankfully I didn't do that. And then, so we've got a couple more teams to talk about. Next one's Forest. So obviously a very good result for them, getting a 3-1 win against QPR. Particularly having gone behind, I think that's obviously big for them. Delightful game for me as someone who owns Jed Spence and Brennan Johnson. What a hit from Jed Spence! That's some hit. We know he's good getting forward, sort of getting the ball into the box, supporting the attacks and everything. Wasn't exactly sure he had that in him. Another goal for Ryan Yates, who's obviously just signed a new contract as well, and doing really well for them at the moment. I think he's one of these players that goes a bit under the radar, but I think has had a really good run now in the midfield with Garner. I think that works quite well for them. And yeah, Brendan Johnson getting the third. He's struggled a bit for form recently. I know those watching the game said he wasn't necessarily playing that well before the goal came. But I wonder whether with someone like him getting another goal on the board might just sort of kickstart him again. Obviously they blank in 39 playing in the FA Cup. But yeah, I'm quite happy with those two. I know I've spoken about the likes of Keenan Davis before. I don't think I'd be going there now, but obviously not for most people with the blank. But I think if you don't have someone like Spence in particular, you're probably going to be looking at how quickly you can get him in after the blank. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on Forest.
Yeah, just I have Spence. He's going to be one of the players who are just going to be on my bench. I've had Johnson and then sold him. It's not nice watching him, and I feel like, especially that 4-0, I got away with it a bit, to be honest. It's one of those players who there's a high chance he's going to be back in my team very quickly, I think. I thought it was just probably best to mention that Colback played left wing back with Lowe, who's out injured. I think they brought in Figueiredo as well because Cook's injured as well. I think they're both out for about 6 weeks, Angus, aren't they?
Yeah, both 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how they do, but I did think that was a good performance and a good result in a big game, because they're another one where they can't afford to drop too many points at the moment with the sort of chase for the playoffs the way it is. I'll go with the last positive team we have, which is Swansea. So obviously there's a lot of interest in Swansea at the moment. People have been buying Swansea as well. But this game looked like it might go wrong for them, and then it went right. But what are your thoughts on Swansea, Dan?
Just recently, they seem to be playing a bit more attacking with Pirro and Obafemi playing. Obafemi got 2, Pirro got 1. Patterson got an assist, who I'd brought in not this game week, the game week before. So yeah, I think going forward, Swansea are a good side to maybe invest in. I don't hate Christie, just because we've seen throughout his career, whether it's last year with Forest or this year, that he's at times basically plays as a winger. And I think the fixture this week is quite good for Swansea, Birmingham, and then the double of Cardiff and Millwall. Millwall's a bit tricky, but you'd like to think Patterson or any of your players would probably return some points. So yeah, I'm on Patterson. I'm happy with Patterson. Probably won't bring any more in, but people who are underhauling or anything else, not terrible to punt on a striker, I don't think.
Yeah, special mention for Joe Jenkins, who as part of his moves this week sold Mitrovic to Obafemi. So obviously that was one of the more interesting moves, but it's obviously worked out for him this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think they're an interesting team at the moment. They're in the midst of a good run of fixtures, and particularly attacking wise, they've got some decent options there. Someone like a Patterson or one of the strikers. does seem like a very viable option at the moment. But the final team we're going to talk about, because, I just couldn't help it. Bournemouth. Everyone was always like, and we've got our slanky goal, which is the main thing. But it was all about, how many are Bournemouth going to put past Reading? Reading aren't good. Bournemouth, they can sort of, get this big win and everything. And they really weren't very good. Again. I've talked before about, my thoughts on Scott Parker are well documented. 2 years ago, the last time he was a manager in the Championship, his team basically bottled automatic promotion and just about finished in the playoffs and went up that way. And it's like, are we about to see the same thing again from a Scott Parker team? A team against a team like Reading, a draw wasn't even unfair. That's the big thing there. A draw wasn't even unfair. It's clearly not right at the moment. Is the big thing with them. Whether you want to be like me and attribute it all to Scott Parker, or whether there's sort of, issues with with players not, playing as well as they should be, or anything like that. It's clearly not right at the moment. And you look at some of the sort of fixtures they've got coming up, where people should be looking at piling into Bournemouth, and it's not something I can really advise at the moment. I don't know. I feel like I've had a very restrained sort of pop at Bournemouth, but I don't know what your thoughts are, Dan.
I just keep looking at. I've got it on my phone. SofaScore, the lineup, and I'm like, I don't understand how this team isn't closer to Fulham. You get the feeling it's got nothing to do with Parker. It's just the players, and as in like Parker's telling them to do something, they follow it, and then suddenly they'll score a good goal like they did against Reading, and it's not because of Parker. That's because of the players they've got. This team should be a lot closer to Fulham, and they're just nowhere near it. And it's not like they're even rotating that much. It's a pretty solid lineup. Yes, they're missing Billing, but that's about it. I don't know what to say about Bournemouth. And I know they've got the game in hand, but their run is ridiculous. We went over it the last week.
They basically play all the contenders down the stretch. Basically, almost every single contender. Almost all of them they play. Yeah,
they do. Yeah, I've got Solanke and Zamora. Problem is, you've got to keep them because they've got so many games. But I'm not going to bring in a third now. I'm not going back to Billing.
No, I think like 2 is probably fine at the moment. Probably Solanke +1, and you decide what you want to do. Basically, whether you want to go a defensive one, or probably, I don't think many people are going to be buying Billing this week. Some will, and that's fine if you want to go with him in addition. I think he's still a decent option. I think those who still have Billing will hold, but I think it's probably Solanke +1 at this point, and you just sort of choose which one you want to go with. But it's not great, and like I say, we probably should be looking sort of to triple up with all the games they've got coming up, and a lot of us probably will end up on a triple up by the time they get sort of into their run of doubles, because it's just sort of practical almost to do it. But it doesn't feel great, the idea of going into them at the moment, and this game was sort of the latest example of that, really. A little bit of credit to Reading, but I think realistically we have to look at Bournemouth and say, on paper they should be putting them away, and they really didn't. But so that's the sort of teams we wanted to have a look at. We'll get into the questions that people ask now. they're in no particular order. They're just how they appear on Twitter for me under the question tweet. So the first one we've got is Neil Thompson, who starts off by saying, "Here we go again." 1. Why did I go Billing instead of Baker a few weeks ago? 2. Is 3 Fulham assets a must for game week 40? Thinking of losing 1 for 39 and not sure I want to do the hokey cokey. 3. How many players do you think you would need for game week 39 with no boost? 4. Best captaincy for 39. I think he also did say thanks again for all the content. It really is a good listen and great help. So yeah, we always enjoy anyone who wants to sort of butter us up with nice comments. So we'll take these one by one. So the first one, why did he go Billing instead of Baker a few weeks ago?
I think Billing was the move, to be honest. He then decided to get 2 yellow cards
in 2 games. I think it was
in 2 games,
where you
so
think it's going to be spread out a bit more, and then he gets those 2 bookings in 2 games.
So he then misses. Baker's a frustrating one because I think I've had him probably similar amount of weeks than I would have. Well, I did because I'd overhauled, and I don't think I've got any points from Baker. Like when he scored, I think I've benched him, so it's frustrating. But Baker is basically playing defensive mid,
yeah,
and he just keeps scoring when he shouldn't. I know he's on pens, but yeah, I don't think it was terrible to go Billing over Baker.
No, me neither, actually. In the terms of the second question, is 3 Fulham assets a must for game week 40? Obviously, in game week 40 they play. I've lost QPR and Middlesbrough both away. Do you think 3 is a must for that?
I don't think it's a must. I'm currently on 2, which will be Mitrovic and Wilson. I got rid of Carvalho this week. And my thinking is that I'm going to, at some point, go for Nico Williams, I think. Just change my Fulham assets. Not sure you need 3 for Fulham for game week 40, to be honest.
No, I mean, I think you probably want at least 2.
Yeah.
And then the 3 sort of depends. I've been looking at the idea of potentially sort of getting to Nico Williams. I've decided against the first part of that would have been to sell probably Carvalho this week, but I haven't ruled out doing it in game week 40. But no, I don't think 3 is a must. But you probably want at least 2. His third question: how many players do you think you would need for game week 39 with no boost? So I assume that means in terms of not playing the underhaul. How many players do you think you would need to not do that, to just sort of muddle through?
Well, I'm currently on 11, but one of them's Naismith, so it's probably a 10. I'm just going to do 1 transfer, whether it's Naismith or one of my other assets. It might be Naismith. I'm not taking any hits, though.
No, I mean, I think that's sort of a big thing. To take a hit this week, it really has to be worth it. I mean, someone asked me earlier whether I thought 8 players was enough for this week, and I think that's fine. It depends a little bit who your 8 players are, particularly if you've got someone like Naismith. We've spoken on the last pod about how I'm going to be underhauling this week. I would have been on, I think it was 6 or 7, one of which was Naismith. So it's it just became sort of it's almost just not worth it for me. I'd have to take a hit to get to like 7 players. It's not worth it at that point from my point of view, where I would rather sort of mitigate the lost points by doing that this week. And because I'd decided that, I'd then made moves accordingly. So for me, I think if you've got more than 8, I think you're all right, to be honest. I think there's going to be quite a few people with players out this week and everything. So I think anything more than 8, it's not worth playing a boost, essentially. Which I guess in this case, I assume he's talking about underhaul, which I think, if you've got anything 8 plus, you're fine there, really. And his last question was the best captaincy for game week 39.
Yes, a few people have asked this, and it's quite an interesting one because Bournemouth are obviously against Huddersfield, so a lot of people have Solanke, and then because Fulham don't play, I think Sheffield United, they play Barnsley. They're going to be quite popular. I think either Sharp or Morgan Gibbs White. You've then got Blackburn Reading's not terrible. I brought in Cadra, so I'm not saying full captain, but maybe a vice on Cadra. Maybe a Townsend, or you bring in a West Brom striker against Bristol City. I don't hate that. Maybe Victor against Derby. They are conceding a lot more goals now, Derby. Maybe I want to say Bree, but we've got no defenders. It seems a bit risky, to be honest. I don't know, but maybe a Wallace against Stoke. But QPR, I just realised they're playing Peterborough. Maybe maybe a Chair or someone like that.
Well, I thought you weren't going to get there. My pick I was going to throw out there was Andre Gray.
Oh no.
If you're really feeling bold, because I don't think Lyndon Dykes will be back.
And Willock's injured, isn't
he? He did go off injured. I'll need to double check how bad it is, but it sounded the way people were talking about it like he won't play. So someone like a Chair or an Andre Gray.
I wonder if they'll play Chair behind Austin and Gray that match.
Could well be, yeah. But yeah, I think you've listed a number of them there. I think there's going to be a split. Obviously we have a look at the sort of captaincy in the top 10 each game week, and I think it'd be really interesting to see the split there, because I do think there could actually be a bit more of a spread this week. There'll be some people who go with sort of the more theoretically safe captaincy, someone like a Solanke.
If I think the highest will be, I still think it's going to be Sharp this week, I think.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm going to say Carlin Grant.
You reckon?
Yeah.
It's going to be popular?
No, I just think he's going to be I think a few people will go there, particularly as sort of a 1 week move. But if I had to pick out one for this week, I'll say Carlin Grant, because I can't let my captaincy pick for this week be Andre Gray. It's just
no,
too far.
It's a good week for a punt, I think, because it's going to be, ownership's going to be spread. So even like a vice captain on a punt is good this week, I think. Yeah. So I might do a Cadra vice captain or something.
Yeah. The next question we've got is from David Strom, who he asks a 2-part question as well. So he asks the best Jeepers Keepers goalies for the double game week. So I assume that's game week 40. So the best keepers for a Jeepers Keepers in 40.
This is hard. I'm sure I've said this before. Is it Swansea, maybe? Cardiff, Mill, I don't know. Well, QPR, but they don't have any goalies at the minute.
Who knows who's going to be in goal for them? I'm going to say Wes Foderingham. Obviously, he did well for people on the last one. And I am going to say Travers. And if you want a cheaper option,
maybe
Moore
Blackpool keeper.
Moore and Grimshaw, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think those are probably the ones I would pick out. And he said, and some defenders too, for good measure, for double game week 40. So I think some of them, it's sort of your standard picks almost.
Yeah.
I mean, I think someone like a Nico Williams, Bree, Naismith fitness depending. Obviously, that's after the international break, so you'd hope he'd be fit by then.
Yeah.
But someone like that, Spence. I'm not sure. Sort of working your way down, it gets a bit more difficult. Maybe someone like Osiris Christie, and someone like Connor Townsend as well.
Yeah, it's a shame Baldock's not fit because
Yeah.
this would be ideal at the time, but he's just not fit at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, he might be fit by then, in which case you look at someone like that, but yeah, at the moment, it's sort of the obvious ones, to be honest. Next question we've got is from Justin Sargent, who asks, the best player to target for underhaul, please. So, I mean, obviously part of the thing for thinking for me with underhaul is just sort of going with a player you wouldn't otherwise, because that's part of the fun of it. But also a player that you wouldn't want to be holding sort of longer term, which is where someone like Andre Gray comes into the equation. Where but
they're playing Peterborough.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Where
definitely
you're
an option,
you've got the 1 week thing with Andre Gray, but then you don't have to look at your team with Andre Gray in after this 1 week. I think you could say the same for someone like the West Brom attackers, where the amount of people who've been hurt by the West Brom attackers and been stuck with them or whatever. It's different if you're just going for them for 1 week. I do think that can be viable. It's tough. Apart from that, do you have any picks sort of that you would sort of shout out to people for underhaul?
Maybe go for Blackburn again, because they've got Reading as well, so that's why I went for Cadra. Just a bit of a punty pick.
Someone like a Dolan.
Yeah. Maybe Millwall against Stoke. They've not been great, have they?
No.
Maybe
we're trying to be nice to Stoke, but they have not been good.
I know. No, they've not.
But yeah, I think the main thing is there's a few sort of interesting options around for people.
If I was on underhaul, I'd be I'd have like maybe 3 or 4 solid players, and then I'd just risk the rest of them for punts.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, but I think there's a few that you can sort of punt for 1 week on. Shibidabida has asked the best 4.5 or less defender to cover this game week. He doesn't need them for game week 40. So 4.5 or less for just this week. I'll give you one that I can think of off the top of my head, just looking at who.
Is it the same as mine?
It probably isn't, but
you reckon?
I've got Wharton from Blackburn.
Yeah, that's the one I went.
Yeah.
Just because Blackburn have been quite good defence. I know he did score his first goal, but they've been quite good defensively. The rest are all a bit. Maybe Lee Wallace.
Yeah, I mean that's potentially one. But yeah, it's tough.
They play Peterborough.
Yeah, it's tough for cheap defenders at the moment. Just trying to think. I'm not sure there is anyone that I like anywhere else. So yeah, that would be my pick for that question. The next question we've got is from Renard9, who's sent a picture of his team. So I guess pertinent for this question, he's got Willock, Patterson, Gibbs White and Wilson, but he says the best Carvalho replacement, and he has 5.4 max to spend.
And does he need it for this game week? I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
I think just looking at it, he's got 10, so yeah, it would be one to play this week.
Do you know what? I think I'd punt for a Luton player.
We talked after our last pod recording about Alan Campbell.
Yeah. But I also like someone like a Berry or a Clark. It will
Yeah,
be a punt because they might not play, but like I said, Berry's record is ridiculous. He did get subbed off, so that makes me think that he is going to play. And he's 4.4. It
yeah,
depends how long term you want it.
yeah. If it's purely about covering this week, then you've got some of those guys who you can potentially just sort of say, right, I'm going to bring them in for this 1 week. And see how it goes. I mean, I would say someone like a Buckley, but obviously he's been left out of a couple of games now, so he's not necessarily as good a pick. Yeah, it's tough at the moment to sort of find those sort of
Because
real
all the
budget options. It's why someone like Carvalho has stuck around for me.
it's
Even
because
though
of
it's
the
not
price
necessarily
rises.
amazing, I'd throw out Bassi.
Yeah.
Um, I've already gone to throw out at least two that aren't playing this week, so that also shows the slight issue just with the teams that are blanking this week. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple there. Otherwise, it gets a bit sort of stretched. But looking at
Bristol
his team,
City
he's
playing.
planning to keep Wilson, Mitrovic, and McNair, so I can understand that move.
Yeah. And if you go for a Luton mid after we've got Millwall and Peterborough the next in the 40.
Yeah, so it's not bad. That might be your best route there, to be honest. The next question we've got is from FPL Red Arrow, who says he's looking to take out Whiteman for someone that plays in 39 and doubles in 40. Max budget 5.8, and then he said Harmer question mark.
It's not terrible.
I
He
I
gets
do like
booked.
Harmer as an option.
Gets booked though, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yes, he might be the league leader, or he might have lost that title in terms of yellow cards.
Crooks is up there, isn't he?
Yeah, and
So five
Burn's
point.
another one.
It's going to be the same players, isn't it? You can have a Cadra for 5.8.
Yeah, or our favourite troll, Callum O'Hare at 5.4.
It's hard, isn't it? Because you've mainly got a lot of defensive midfielders or rotation risks.
Yeah, I think you're thinking along the right lines as well with someone like Coventry. So maybe someone like an O'Hare or a Harmer. The next question we've got is from Owen Walsh, who says, are there any fixtures still to be rescheduled? If so, when do we expect them to fall? No, because we finally got the Fulham Forest game rescheduled. For some reason, it took them ages to announce. It took them like a week to announce the rescheduled. Particularly when I said at the time it will go into game week 44, and it took them a week to confirm, what I'd already said. So turns out occasionally I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, at the moment there's no games to be rescheduled. That might change if Forest the only championship team left in the FA Cup.
Middlesbrough.
If Forest or Middlesbrough win, that might change. But as it stands right now, I don't think there's any games to be rescheduled left. Tommy Shelby, FF Birmingham City, has said, who would be your captain pick for this week? We've sort of covered that previously. Mike Day asked us, how much have your plans changed on boost usage since you first saw the latest set in Game Week 30? Plan versus reality. So I thought this one was interesting when I saw it. I'll be honest, as these questions have been coming in, I haven't been sort of looking too much at them. But I did see this one and I did think it was quite interesting. So one big thing for me was as soon as the boosts came out, I said right away, right Goalfest in Game Week 40. And that hasn't happened. But on the flip side, right away I said Jeepers Keepers in Game Week 32. And that I did do. I also immediately wrote off the Underhaul. I'll now be playing the Underhaul. But I think there's sort of those elements where, Goalfest, I was looking at the big doubles, and so I still played it in a big double in 36. Jeepers Keepers, and it was always +1. It was Jeepers Keepers Goalfest +1. And I think, it ended up falling for me where, the Underhaul made sense for me. But yeah, so it's changed a little bit, but a lot of the theory behind it was the same. I don't know if it's similar for you, Dan.
So I knew I was wanting to play Jeepers Keepers and Goalfest. Was trying not to use the overhaul, but when I did use it, I think I only kept 4 of the players I wanted to, so I don't really regret it. It set me up for the doubles in 36 and 40, and the blank. It set up the blank okay as well. So we'll see how well it goes after 40, where everyone's going to use a boost and I don't have any. So, but like I said, was it game week 30? I think I'll tell you how many places I've gone up since game week 30. I've gone up about 150 places.
Yeah.
So cut my rank in half. Obviously, it'll probably drop in 40, but I think it's worked quite well. I got on. I think Sheffield United early, got off them. Yeah, I think I've done all right.
Yeah. FPL frustration with the next question, who said, who are the best midfielders for Game Week 39? I think that's something we've probably covered at length at this point. It's sort of... it's the same sort of players, really. I think, we're looking at Chair, we're looking at Gibbs White, maybe one of the Luton guys, but that's also about your budget. Someone like Cadra.
Patterson.
Yeah, Patterson as well.
Maybe Robinson if you take a punt.
Yeah. So I think it's the same sort of players, really. Maybe someone like an O'Hare against Derby. So I think it's the same sort of options there, really, to be honest. Another question from Petteri Annanen asking the best captains in Game Week 39. No, Mitrovic and Bournemouth have a difficult game. So I think we've covered the captaincy picks. I think we'll sort of skip over that at this point. We've given you a number of picks there. FPL Commander asks, with the blank game week coming up, is it sensible to move out Flint and Carvalho? With 2 free transfers and 5.0 in the bank, should I go for 2 Luton players, Bree and Cornick perhaps, that doubles in game week 40, or are there better alternatives? So on the first part, we talked about it, but I guess you would agree that selling Flint and Carvalho is fine at this point?
Yeah, it's fine, I think, yeah.
I think Bree for Flint, that sounds very logical. I know you've said Luton are short of defenders, but it's still a move that makes sense for me. And if anything, it makes it more certain that he'll play. So you've got that security.
It might be at centre back though.
Yes, that's the one downside. But I'm not sure. And then obviously with Carvalho, we've talked about the different options. I'm not sure I'd go with Cornick. I know you've been sort of a bit dubious about going for Cornick because of the way there's been a bit of rotation with him.
That's Cameron Jerome.
Yeah, super Cameron Jerome.
So, like, for example, Cameron Jerome apparently was ill Tuesday night. I don't know if it was COVID or something. Against Hull, I'm guessing Cornick will play. But then in the double, we've got Millwall. I- I'm pretty sure Jerome's going to play against Millwall with Adebayo just because they're stronger. He's done that
Yeah,
quite a lot. And then Cornick will probably play against Peterborough, I'm guessing.
which isn't
So
terrible, but
it's 50-50.
yeah. I'd potentially look at someone like we've mentioned him a number of times now, someone like Patterson rather than someone like Cornick.
Yeah.
That sort of thing makes more sense to me. Although I don't hate the Cornick idea, but I just think there's the possibility to go somewhere else. If you don't have someone like Chair, that might be a good move now, depending on Willock's injury status.
It's hard because we've got this game week and then we got 2 weeks off, and
Yeah.
players can just come back in 2 weeks. So it's hard to know the status of players.
Yeah. I mean, not that I'm complaining. I'm very much looking forward
No,
to
I know.
not having to look up, players' injury status and everything. So that'll be nice. We will have something for you in the international break, which will be confirmed. But yeah, I'm quite looking forward to taking it a bit easier on that front as well.
I can just get frustrated about England and Southgate for 2 weeks now.
I mean, not for me, but
No.
we'll see. I mean, I might have to watch Stephen O'Donnell play again. So each person has their issues.
Wasn't good enough for Luton in League Two
No.
when we had him.
No, well, he's not good enough for Scotland. But we digress. The next question we've got is from FPL Buddy. He's another one who's asked 2 questions in one.
Unbelievable.
He started off with saying, is Naismith now dropped and Bree now becomes the only option from Luton's defence? As we've covered, no.
Naismith is not dropped. He's one of our best. He's guaranteed to play. He's just injured.
And it's... Yeah, I mean, Bree's probably, in the immediate term, the only nailed one because we don't necessarily know Naismith's injury status for this weekend. But going forward, Naismith will play. And his second question, best forwards for that third forward slot for a 2-week punt, so including 40. Pirro, Obafemi. It's tough to look past that. Adebayo, although you can almost never trust him to be far away from an injury. Yeah. Billy Sharp, I guess, if you're going off having Mitrovic and Solanke.
Yeah.
The final question we've got is from Ron Mukherjee, who he asks for a 1-week midfielder punt for just this week. Budget of 7 million.
I was going to say Chair, but he's over that.
Yeah.
I think it's probably Cadra.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Jamie Patterson. I feel like I've been talking about him all show, but I'm gonna say Patterson. So that's all the questions. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. We obviously had quite a few this week, and there were some good ones in there. And a lot of you cheeky bastards who decided to dress it up like you were asking one question, ask multiple questions. But that's fine too. So we'll finish off by going through the sort of normal predictions and sort of best asset from each game for the games in game week 39. So we start with 2 games at Saturday lunchtime. So the first one is Derby against Coventry.
I'm going draw, and I'm going to go Madsen.
I'm going Coventry, and I'm also going Matson. Sheffield United Barnsley.
Sheffield United just Billy Sharp.
I'm going with a draw and Gibbs White. Bristol City West Brom.
West Brom. Grant.
Yeah, I'm going West Brom and Grant as well. Huddersfield, Bournemouth.
Draw. Nichols.
I think after my sort of criticism of them and everything, Bournemouth are going to win. And I'm going to say that the top scorer will be Billing. Hull against Luton.
I'm going to just Luton. And I'm going to go Berry.
I'm going to say Luton, but again, I think it'll be close. I'm going to go with Cornick because I think he'll probably play up top with those other issues. So I'm going to say him. Reading against Blackburn.
Blackburn, Cadra.
I'm going to go with Blackburn and Gallagher. Stoke against Millwall.
Draw. Malone.
I'm going to go with Millwall and Jed Wallace. Swansea against Birmingham.
Swansea, Piero.
I'm going to go Swansea and for the 100th time in this show, Patterson.
You're going to be in trouble, Angus, if he doesn't play Patterson.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to get so many responses like, you said Patterson. Yeah. I don't really know what to tell you if he doesn't play. QPR Peterborough.
QPR Andre Gray.
Yeah, I'm going to say QPR and Andre Gray. I'm fully committed to this now. But yeah, so that's obviously all our predictions. Are we going to do a review of Game Week 39?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got international break.
Yeah, so we'll do a review of Game Week 39 after the weekend. And we'll probably have at least one thing for you over the international break. Probably less sort of Gaffr related. We might be bringing someone back on for one of the shows, but we'll sort of confirm that or not at another point.
Get the swear jar open again.
Yeah, the most nailed on sort of explicit rating of all time. But yeah, so thank you again for listening, and we will speak to you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Unbelievable!